But I have to start again. Good evening. This is Edna White. Today's our third day, and we're going to be talking about inner wounds, what they are, and what they look like, and what they become from you. Okay, out of your body, how you act and respond. So it's going to be a little bit deeper, and we're going to try to get this done, and so we can have questions and answers, and also if you did your homework, I know that it's really tough because we had exercises to do yesterday, and I did give you like 15, but I did two with you online. So I just want to know if you've kind of did one or two. So if you haven't, you can try to catch up and kind of like, I'm just your person to remind you to do your homework. That's what I'm going to do. Remind you to do your homework because it's all worth it. Okay. So today, like I said, we are talking about what are inner child wounds. And we did talk about, we're going to also do a test today, a little small test. And it's just for you to jot down, not too hard. Um, but we're talking about the inner child. The inner child is a direct representation of yourself in your earlier years, okay? Ideally, the inner child would represent playfulness and fun. However, not everyone, including myself, associates their childhood with playfulness. And sometimes it can be traumatic. You could have experienced a lot of trauma of any kind. Um, and your inner child at that time was vulnerable, small, and afraid. So, unless you're seeking healing, your inner child wounds can negatively affect the quality of your life right now. So, I'm going to ask you a few questions and about inner child wounds. The number one: do you struggle with low self-esteem? Yes or no? And you can either put it in the chat box or you can write it down. Do you struggle with low self-esteem? Okay. Do you often worry that the people in your life will eventually leave you? Okay. Number three, do you often feel guilty standing up for yourself? You can just write them down, write the answers down for yourself. Number four, do you constantly criticize yourself for being inadequate or unworthy? Number five, do you feel ashamed of expressing strong emotions like anger or sadness? I know I did. Number six, do you find it difficult to trust yourself and other people? Number seven, are you an addict or even been addicted to something? Number eight, do you prioritize other people's needs over your own? Now, if you've answered yes to any of these questions, your inner child might be wounded and need healing. Now, how do you translate all that information to healing the child wounds using, these questions? How does that even relate? Because the response in you is immediately to say yes, because adult really doesn't have an attachment issue. A child does. Adults don't have those. If the adult has grown up in a wholesome home and has no trauma in an ideal world, let's just say in the ideal world, they would not have attachment issues because they would have learned and had the ability to detach when necessary, right? if you and attachment shows itself through addictions. So coffee, lots of it. I'm not talking like one or two. No, I'm talking about one or two. So don't get me mistaken. I'm talking about a lot of it. Attachment to cigarettes, cigars, other drugs, alcohol, eating, food, things like that. That's what I'm talking about. Things like anything, and let me just say, addiction is anything to excess. So we just want to make sure that that personification is there. Anything to excess. Exercising, anything to excess. Did I say food? Yeah, food. Anything to excess. Tanning, anything to excess. That damages you or hurts yourself, really hurts you. So sex, anything that's damaging to you, that really hurts you, in excess. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about addiction. Addiction, like I said, shows up from detachment, having a problem with detaching from something. Trusting, when we talked about that yesterday, trusting others, and first trusting yourself, because the reason why you don't trust others because you don't trust yourself. That's really the relationship with the non-trust with everybody. Yeah, people may have done you wrong, but you don't trust yourself to make the right decision or to actually say, can I trust this person? You don't trust that you know how to trust another person. So that's the disconnection from that. Strong emotions, like I explained, that I didn't want to experience. I made my I guess my life's work in not expressing sadness, but the sadness had to go somewhere. So sadness always came out in anger in the wrong way. So I never wanted to cry, but I was definitely angry at everything, no matter what it was. Pin drop, angry, no matter what it was. Wrong music, angry. Throwing things, angry. I was always, they call it now, what is it called? When you're inadequate or unworthy, you have the imposter syndrome. So you always criticize yourself. Oh, I should have did this. I should have did that. And I used to do that because everything wasn't perfect on my videos or my presentations, and I didn't have the great diction. But I had to remember that I have deficiencies of my own, so everything's not going to be perfect, and I actually don't care, because that's who I am. So what I would tell you is that having that kind of unworthiness and inadequate feeling is damaging to yourself. Again, you can criticize yourself, but not criticize. Critique, that's the word. You can critique yourself, but you cannot criticize yourself, because criticizing is putting down, critiquing is building up. So there's two different directions. So there's an insight that we get when we start to delve into our emotional well-being as an adult. Okay. And what we start to do is delve into the past. So either we delve into it or we don't. And that's the insight that we have into being a good reparenter, when you start to deal with the wounds of your childhood. The wounds are definitely, when I say definitely, I mean really definitely, they are tremendous, and then that goes into what is it called? I just said that the other day. That goes into shadow work. So we'll get to that another time, because I'm going to have a class on that. But we're going to talk about the child's wounds, what they look like. Okay, it's emotionally or hurt. When you're emotionally hurt, physical goes along with it. in some instances, but when you're emotionally hurt, that wound, the external things, the body wounds can literally go away and be a scar. But when you hurt the emotional part, that's always going to be a trigger. Because a child is so small and has no experience with life, along with being underdeveloped emotionally and mentally, they aren't able to fully process certain life events. So, molestation, they're not able to process that. Myself, I wasn't able to process the dynamics of that. Wasn't able to at 5. Couldn't wrap my head around that. All I could wrap my head around is I'm a kid. That's all I knew. I was a kid and fun. Those are two things that I really like to do, is a kid and fun. They went together. So put this in perspective. As an adult who experiences a parent passing away, will be much more equipped than a child who is experiencing the same thing, because they know it's part of life. The adult knows it's part of life. A child may even be a bit traumatized transitioning through grade school, right? You know how it is when you have to move and your child's like, but all my friends are here. They're being pulled from one familiar classroom or area and being put into a new room full of new people that they have to start all over again to get to know. Traumatic for them, for children. This isn't to say that human beings aren't resilient. Children are resilient, but there's something that they hold dear in their childhood that makes that it's important. It's important to point out that everyone experiences things differently. Every one of us, we can all have the same thing that traumatized us, but every one of us deal with it differently. So don't think that just because maybe me, let's take me, I survived this, and maybe in 2 years, and that's not true, in 2 years, and then you're taking like 7 or 8 or 10 years. Don't think that. Everyone really feels trauma differently, and it goes out through their senses differently. So don't feel that way. When a child is bullied at school, feels like that they're that they could be traumatized, or when there's a newborn in their family, they don't even know how to process that. Like, okay, where did that kid come from? What does that put me? What's happening? Or when they witness divorce or experience racism or abuse or anything else, they perceive it's traumatic. It's traumatic. It's traumatizing. A child might not be getting the secure love necessary to process these life events as best they can. As I was going through my traumas in my life, my mother couldn't talk to me about it because it was very triggering for her. So I'd tell her, she'd tell me it's okay, it'll be all right. And that was the end of the conversation. That was the crux of it. So they can't give what they don't have. That I learned that later, not as a child. Emotions that are left unprocessed and undigested can leave a child with unhealthy, unconscious beliefs about their own existence. Now we're talking about the wounds, about their own existence. These wounds are about their own existence, not about anybody else. Their own existence and why they're here. Some examples of these beliefs are: nobody can be trusted, I'm blameless, and you always forgive me, I'm always wrong, I am pure, I am helpless, the world wants to dominate me, I've always been a loser, and everyone is ungrateful. You will unconsciously live out these positions in your relationships. And when It's against yourself. Total disinterest in yourself. Okay, total. So every relationship, including your own, will have that unconscious belief in your that nobody can be trusted. Guess what? I can't be trusted. Everyone's ungrateful. Guess what? I'm ungrateful. So it's every unconscious belief starts with yourself. Everything you believe about somebody else is a direct reflection of what you believe about yourself. Hate to say that, but it's very true. I'm not saying don't use your gut feeling should you have to protect your children, yourself, or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about the belief system sitting alone with yourself right now. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. So we're going to stay in that little bubble there. Okay. Until you become aware of this, your psyche is in arrested development. So it will not happen. Becoming aware of these underlying beliefs, engaging with the inner child, and doing the proper grief work can help mend these wounds. So what are the signs of the child wounds? Here we go. And I know you probably already got a little bit of it from what I was talking about before. First, before I go on, does everybody understand what I just said to them? And is it clear?
Can you repeat that? Whatever you just said about the triggers or whatever.
The triggers?
I mean, not triggers, but you said the certain categories that we won't trust and some other things.
Oh, you're talking about the examples of the beliefs?
Yes, the beliefs.
Okay.
Yes.
So the examples of the beliefs are nobody can be trusted. I'm blameless, or you always forgive me. I'm always wrong. I'm pure. I am helpless. The world wants to dominate me. I've always been a loser. That's what it is. I've always been a loser, and everyone is ungrateful. So those are the unconscious beliefs that you have that put you in a position to relate that same unconscious belief that you're not saying out of your mouth, because you could be saying, hey, I really love this person. I really trust this person. And then back here could be saying, I don't know. Let me check and see if they're telling the truth. Let me ask somebody. Let me check their phone. Let me go over here. Let me ask somebody about this. So you always are going to have a little, untrust. Not a little, because there's no such as little untrust. It's untrust. So the trust or untrust. So not a little. So even against yourself. So what you feel for against someone else, it's a direct reflection of how you feel about yourself. You may not be aware of it. It's a direct reflection. And it's living in survival mode that makes you do that. It's arrested development. Okay? Is that good, Thelma?
Yes, I think I've experienced most of those, and it even goes over into my finances. I feel like jobs, and I've been not able to keep jobs, and
Yep.
and then it's like my finances, it trickles over into your finances.
Oh yeah, goes everywhere. Goes into the 4 pillars of your life: your spiritual, your social life, your finances,
Yeah.
right? All of those areas. So
Yeah.
and your relationships, it goes all through them. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna talk about now. We're gonna do the signs of inner childhood wounds. One is I said it before, is self-abandonment. So where do you get it from? Abandonment. So what do you do for yourself? You abandon yourself. Okay. So what I say when I say self-abandonment, I mean it's what I say all the time. Stop making yourself small so others can feel big. So you may be in a conversation, or you may be around your friends, and I know this happened to me. I would be around a lot of people, and I was trying to make new friends, because I was moving into another level in my business. So I only have a bachelor's degree, or that's what I felt I only have. And all the people I was around had PhDs, doctorates, da da da. You know, they went in academia, all this. They were professors, all this. And so what I would do is I would, as soon as I was around them, we laugh and talk, you know, when we're hanging out, and then all of a sudden we get into serious conversation, and I know what they're talking about, and I can add to it. But I felt so small, like I was like, oh, I don't think I could add to that because I only have a BA. So I would abandon who I was because to make everybody else match their title, if that makes sense. I have also in the past had an issue with my sister, or my baby sister, and as you can tell, I'm a pretty like flamboyant person all the time. So I'm always like that. I'm always like I've been like this since I was a little girl, and I love talking to people. I love engaging. Um, so she was always mad at me for something. I kept saying, "Why is she mad? Why is she mad?" And one day she told me, she says, "I can't stand it when you walk into the room and you light up the room and everybody forgets about us." So I was like, "Oh, that's that." And I kind of felt guilty, and I was like, and I didn't realize I was doing it. It was just like I just didn't realize that that was happening. And then so I started, every time we had an event, I would get in the background, push everybody forward. I would never say anything. I would, like, if it was dinner at my house, I would, be running around having something to do. Oh, and giving everyone else the big props to do things in the forefront. Then finally one day, I got so tired of doing that. I was like, why am I freaking tired? So if you know anything about talking to yourself, when your inner child is healed, your inner child will be an adult, and your adult will talk back to you and say, because you're faking it. You're dumbing yourself down to make somebody else feel big. I was like, so I had to have a long conversation with my sister, and I said, I can't not be myself. What I can tell you, if people come to me and forget about you, then you're not stepping up your game, and you're expecting them to come serve you. And I'm not doing that. I'm actually going up to them and reaching out and friending people. So I'm not going to do that any longer. So of course, my sister was mad for a little bit, had to sink down. Then she was like, "You're right. I have to stop thinking that people have to serve me, because I'm bigger than life, and I need to show up as myself." And she said to me, the problem is I don't even know what myself is. So I have to spend some time figuring out who I am. And that made a lot of sense to me, because we don't know. Sometimes we don't know who we are. That's why, big sisters and little sisters, sometimes they follow each other. Little sisters follow the big sisters, or, get up under the big sisters and learn from them, or big brothers, sisters copy off of them. Siblings kind of, you know, emulating each other, that's what it's from. So in childhood, you picked up by the idea that you're not worthy of love, right? You picked that up. So um I know I did. I picked up that I'm not worthy of love, so I got to just dumb myself down. And then that big sign on your head said, children should be seen and not heard. That's there too. So you got all this stuff that's unconsciously sitting back there just talking to you. And of course, you're going to just dumb yourself down. You're going to, yeah, I'm not worth, what I got to say doesn't matter. So for survival, you made yourself small. And if you remember yesterday, I told you about when I would talk to my mom. Sometimes I knew that my inner child was young, was small. I would shrink as soon as I saw my mother start talking to me about something. I would shrink down to age 12. I could feel myself literally shrink to 12. I could see my hair in pigtails. I honestly could. Honestly could. So that's what self-abandonment is. This is a survival tactic that works in childhood, but no longer works in adulthood. and it doesn't work well when you want to be, I don't believe in introverts. Some people may jump all over me, but I believe if there was a child has been a child is always having fun. Don't care who it is, unless something traumatic happened to them to stop them from being that way. A child wants to have fun, and fun is outward. So I don't believe there's no adult introverts. I believe that a lot of damage has happened to make them convert and self-abandon and kind of curl up and not be there. And it's a survival mode that does not work as an adult. You cannot work and be effective and be social and be a full human being an introvert. You can't. You have to heal that inner child to do that, because you're not honoring your inner voice, right? You're not honoring it. And then it's a bad habit because you become a people pleaser. And then it's another bad habit of being overly passive. One of my managers, back when I had a job about a couple months ago, he said to me one time, I was talking to him about something, and he said to me, I can't stand when women start screaming. My mom used to do it, and then if my wife starts screaming, I just like kind of shrink down and say nothing and just say, yes, dear. So I was talking to him about something about one of the other supervisors was something was bothering me about what was going on, and I needed to address it. And he says, well, I could go, but the minute that the voice escalates, I kind of shrink down and I just say, yeah, I go with whatever is going on. And I said, oh, you're very passive then. That's being overly passive. Knowing something that's wrong, but you're going to sit there and say, yes, yeah, yep. Not going to say anything because I don't want conflict. Life is conflict. You were brought here in conflict. When you were birthed, it was pushing was going on. So you were brought here in conflict. That word is null and void. Okay. So the best way to overcome these inner obstacles is to learn real self-love. Okay. I can't tell you how important self-love is. It's not getting your nails done, not getting your hair cut. It's none of those things. I learned that all those things that we do out here is like a Christmas tree. You dress up a evergreen and make it look lovely for a season. That's what we're doing. Self-care is literally watering that evergreen. Making sure it's not dried out. Making sure that everything's is up to par. Okay. Second thing, addiction. The unwillingness to experience certain emotions and feelings of helplessness can drive a person to addiction. The unwillingness to experience it. Okay, unwillingness. Okay, maybe it's like a trigger of some sort, or very painful, and they don't want to feel that again. Right, that can be a contributor to becoming addicted. And I've told you there's a number of things you can be addicted to. It's not only just drugs and alcohol and cigarettes, okay? Addiction is being self-destructive, and it's an attempt to feel better, believe it or not. It's an attempt to feel better. But it has long-lasting effects on you at the end of it. So how do you want to feel better? You want to not feel lonely. You want to not feel heartbroken. You want to not feel the grief, the sorrow, the helplessness. You want to get rid of those feelings. So, of course, you indulge, or you do, or you temporary fix, whatever it is. You get involved with it, and pretty soon it's like a habit, becomes a habit. Many people who find out that their partner is cheating on them, they sometimes start to drink to dull the pain and the feeling of helplessness. They're probably saying in their head, how did I not know? You know, where was I? What was I doing? How could I be better? There, all these things are going on inside their heads, and of course, out. You know, they start drinking to kind of like null that out and feel like they're in power. Thus, you get some acting out when there's drinking because it gives that fortitude, like you can do anything, and it dulls what's really going on, so you don't pay attention to it, and you're really feeling the emotional part, but the energy, just not the part of it, but the motion part. You're feeling that, and that's why you get the bad behaviors. That's the motion part. So the when you dull your emotions, the energy has to go somewhere. Okay, it has to go somewhere. So where does it go? In the body, behaviors. Okay, an obscure form of addiction is to have reassurance. It's typically a needy person who lacks self-love and self-belief that will consistently look for reassurance, consistent, and that's with the the partner who's cheating, so, or anyone who's has like an addiction. Constantly, you're going to need that reassurance. The issue is that this becomes a cycle of anxiety. Like, so the anxiety happens, the habit happens, then it's all over again. Do soon, because they're always thinking about it. It's always going to happen. It's just always going to keep happening. So addiction is one of those things that is like just keeps happening. Okay, and that's one of the wounds that you'll see. Now, I think this is me. I'm going to say this is what I used to do. It's called the all or nothing living. One way or the other. It's just all or nothing. You find a way to live or a way to act or a way to be. It's all or nothing. It's never in between. It's all or nothing. This can happen when the inner parent or the inner critic, I call mine, has taken strong hold of you. Okay. So this is all happening when you're an adult. You live in a black and white, not or, black and white world. There's good and this is bad. There's never like, oh, that just could have happened. There's never no in between. There's either you do or you don't. There's no trying. None of that in the middle. The problem with this mentality is that it's too simplistic and unreal. It's either yes or no, never maybe, or something else. But that's it, So you live in a black or white kind of stiff world. What you do, whether you're going to church service or you're going to work or you're involved in volunteerism, it's all or nothing. I was going to church and I was dragging my children, never caring about what do you think. I'm an all or nothing person. They weren't. And I did ask forgiveness for this, but it's all or nothing. So everybody in my house had to go. Everybody has to do everything that I say. All or nothing. All or nothing. If you brought up to learn that a person can make 120,000 per year, and if you make less than that, you're a complete failure. Guess what happens? Shame of failure until you achieve that fate. So I'm not fate, but feet. But until you achieve that. So if your parent kept telling you, you have to make 120,000 to really make some money in America, you have to do, and it keeps drilling in that inner child. Then you get to adult and you're making 90. You wonder, why am I not satisfied with my job? Why am I not? Why am I changing job after job? Why am I not, figuring out where my career goes? What's going on? Do you ever reach that goal? Probably not. The biggest issue with the all or nothing mentality is that it's very judgmental. I know when I was in church, it's all or nothing, very judgmental. And then I figured it out. Oh, I'm breeding hate within my own self and with other people. It doesn't work. That's not what we're supposed to be. That's not who we're supposed to be. Would you want somebody judging you? Probably not, right? But that's that all or nothing mentality. That's what it is, all or nothing. Heaven or hell. That's it. That doesn't work because it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. There's no validity on any side, which is right. Because what may be right for you may not be right for me. You're either lovable or unlovable. That doesn't make any sense. What many people don't understand is that anyone who holds themselves as if they're universally superior to another person, morally or however, it's someone who lacks self-awareness. And I didn't want to be one of those. I knew that I had to get out of the situation. I knew I had to change the all or nothing thinking. I wanted to be a person. I want to be my own person. And that's what you have to say, to yourself. All right? Being consumed with the inner critic is how people fall into ideologies, right? They fall into these half truths or truths that are not made on anything, okay? Because it's either right or wrong. So it's important to be self-aware. Controlling behavior. The more you try to control the uncontrollable, the less the control you feel. This is because control and attachment are the same. Both are huge sources of suffering. Controlling behavior is an attempt to get love from outside of oneself. This can be the form of validation, success, etc. But the problem is that you can't control what is beyond your control. So when you don't get what you feel you deserve, you become bitter. Controlling behavior. I know that we know people who are like that have to have control, supervisors who micromanage everything because they're not self-aware. And if they're not self-aware, they then become very bitter because everybody can't do everything right. So they're mad at the world. Controlling behavior. There's no genuine fulfillment in controlling everything aside from a short-lived shot of dopamine in your system, because that's what happens when you think you got control over somebody. So just give you a little shot. Okay. Next one, lack of boundaries. Not knowing where you begin and end leads to resentment towards others and the world. Lack of boundaries. You have no boundaries with people. You have not set boundaries for yourself. You see this with people who are people pleasers and those who don't realize that it's completely acceptable to say no and not feel responsible for the other person's feelings. Many people never learn to have boundaries growing up because they are always violated. So there's no boundaries at all. Learning boundaries as an adult is essential for self-respect, as well as learning how to be assertive. Neglecting our own needs. Although it's perfectly fine asking others to help fulfill or provide some service or need that you have, perfectly fine. It's crucial to understand that the person who can best fulfill your own needs will be yourself, because you know what you need, and expecting everyone else to know what it is very difficult. Or you don't know what you need and expecting everyone to know what you need. Okay? So those are some of the is no, wounds. Are all the wounds signs of inner childhood wounds in an adult? Okay. So I know that what you're probably saying is, what homework do we have for this? Well, I will tell you that the homework you're going to have is to look at those wounds and really write out how they played out in your life. Each wound that that we talked about, self-abandonment, addiction, all or nothing living, um, controlling behavior, lack of boundaries, neglecting your own needs. Write down how that plays out in your life, or it has played out in your life. And then start to set a goal that, or an affirmation that I am going to do something, to kind of resolve that moving forward. If neglecting your own needs, all right, is something that you have been allowing people, allowing to happen in your life, you have to learn to be yourself. You have to learn to be myself and know what myself wants. What is it that I want? What is it that I really, really, truly want? And I wrote a book about that. I was actually looking at the notes today, and it's called The Big Ask. And it's all the questions that I had to ask myself when I started my business. I didn't even really know how much money I wanted to make. I didn't really know what I wanted. So I was like, holy cow, I didn't know what I wanted. That's the biggest, I guess, upset for me, was I had no idea. I didn't know what my favorite color was. I didn't know what my favorite food was. I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't even know that. And I wrote this, I guess it's a workbook. I wrote these questions, and I guess I took them from questions I asked myself. And it's a workbook, and you kind of like can write in it, and it asks you questions really about what you really want in your life, how you really feel, and really get into the crux of, like, who you really are, just to really find out about who you are. Neglecting your own needs is that space that you should have of knowing who you really are and what you really want, and then being yourself. So that will be your homework from me. Okay. So right now, since we have 10 minutes, I'm going to ask if you have any questions about any of the information that was given today, or you want to share, or let me know that you did your homework or didn't do your homework, whichever is good for you. So I invite you all to ask your questions if need be. Okay, so I guess there's no questions then. Okay. All right. So oh, I see a question here from Stephanie. I'm sorry. I didn't see it earlier. Sorry, Stephanie. Can the inner child get wounded in your adult life? No. Mm-mm. No. Um, because remember, it's a child. So again, I just explained to you what a child experiences. It's already experienced all those things. The inner child has already experienced it. You can be hurt as an adult. Yes, you can be traumatized as an adult, but your inner child will always have its own reason why they're wounded. All right, because that plays out in the adult life. Hope that answers your question. All right. So if there's no questions, look forward to this video, and I guess I'll put the wounded PDF on the event. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great evening. Bye for now.